Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to No Timeouts, a football show coming at you from the Score Studio. My name is Jonah Birnbaum. That is Dan Wilkins. That is Tyler MacKillop. That is Justin Boone. You know them. You love them. And before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the No Timeouts YouTube channel. It's what all the cool kids are doing. Fellas, right off the top, we have to give someone some recognition, or for some of us, a mea culpa before we do anything else. That person is Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. On last week's episode, some of us, not all of us, but some of us, myself included, expressed some skepticism over his decision to start Russell Wilson over Justin Fields against the Jets, despite the fact that Fields had led the Steelers to a 4-2 start on the season. Well, Russ comes in, his first game with Pittsburgh after missing 6 weeks with a calf injury, and he exceeded every expectation. Despite a very ugly first quarter, he ultimately turned in a very solid performance. 264 passing yards, a pair of touchdowns, according to Pro Football Focus, 0 turnover-worthy plays, and he led Pittsburgh to their biggest offensive outburst of the season, 37 points. The Steelers are now 5-2. Wilkie, did Mike Tomlin make the right call with Russ?
So, hand up, I may not have said it on the show last week, but I thought this was going to be a ridiculous decision. And yeah, of course he made the right call. He looks like a genius. Russell Wilson's ability in the vertical passing game, and those moon balls in particular, really unlocked George Pickens. And I will say, I'm not totally ready to buy in on this as Russ being the savior for this team. He did only complete 55% of his passes, and I don't know that this is the most sustainable way to run an offense. I don't know what it's going to look like when defenses adjust and just try to take away those down the field, down the sideline passes to George Pickens. Russell Wilson completely ignored the middle of the field, as he always does. So at some point, I do think that his limitations will show up and cause problems, but having said that, when that time comes, I just trust Mike Tomlin to do whatever the right thing to do is. He always makes the right decisions. He always knows what buttons to push, and there's a reason he's never had a losing season.
I explained last week why I thought it was a win-win by Tomlin, that if Russ played well,
nice little victory lap
great.
There, huh?
No, if Russ played well, it was going to be great. But I said at the same time, I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought he was going to get pulled in the game, and I thought they would go back to Fields, and I still thought that was smart because he had that in his back pocket. He didn't have to use it yet. He still has that in his back pocket, though. And I still believe that at some point this season, they are going to go back to Fields. I have a hard time believing that Russ is going to be able to stay as the starter and continue to play well. I think he is going to struggle at some point, and Fields will be back out there. But, yeah, a great game from him and a great performance.
Yeah, and Mike Tomlin said, look, this is why I'm well compensated, right? He knows which buttons to push. Boy, did that ever work out. We thought Russ was cooked. Instead, he was doing the cooking. You know who's not doing the cooking right now is the Los Angeles Chargers offense.
What a segue.
Hey, that's why I'm very well compensated, you know? They have the second fewest offensive touchdowns on the season. They have 9. Which is just unfathomable, despite the fact that Justin Herbert is a very fine quarterback. Now, it's strange because throughout Herbert's time in Los Angeles, the identity of this Chargers team has been as an offense-first team. That has not been the case at all in 2024, following a pretty significant offseason overhaul of the roster. Now, they're 3-3 on the season because their defense has been insane, the best in the NFL. But, T, I'll ask you, what does this Chargers offense need to do to start putting some points on the board with a very fine quarterback?
I think this will be a bit of a rant for everybody here because this was super frustrating for me watching this game on Monday night. The Chargers before this season were 16-0 and their defense allowed less than 20 points. Now with Greg Roman, they're 2-2 in those games because this offense, for one, lacks talent, lacks creativity. I really think that Greg Roman is, I want to call him a Harbaugh merchant, considering he played for both, your coach for both John and Jim, and somehow is still in the league despite a real lack of creativity in the passing game. I think Justin Herbert is the best thrower of the football in the world in terms of ability to put the ball downfield, ability to throw with anticipation, ability to put the ball in some ridiculously tight windows. Now, you can talk to, the clutchness, being able to make plays in the red zone, which they obviously were absent of, but I'm watching the best thrower in the NFL on 3 consecutive plays throw the ball to Eric Tomlinson, Stone Smart, and who am I missing who had a big game? Will Dissly. Those 3 guys got the ball in consecutive plays. It is horrendous what this offense looks like with this group of skill position players. The guys that are catching the football, it's honestly laughable. Like, it's AI-generated names and former XFLers. It's ridiculous. And Jalen Reagor, coming off the practice squad, notoriously known as one of the biggest busts in NFL history, is somehow on punt return, catching balls downfield. being used to make plays when the guy hasn't been on an NFL field in months. I don't understand how we can go into the season with this poor of a group of position players. Actually, I shouldn't say I don't understand. It's Harbaugh's philosophy to win in the trenches. You're obviously missing Quentin Johnston. Somehow that's something we're talking about having an effect on this offense. It's super frustrating the position that this offense is in right now. It's definitely, I think, one of the most well-coached teams in the league. Like, Jesse Minter probably won't last past this year in Los Angeles. I think he's a future head coach. Harbaugh's obviously got this team very disciplined in terms of you're not seeing a lot of those silly, stupid mistakes. But, man, it would be really nice to see Herbert have somebody to throw the ball to, whether it's bringing Mike Williams back. He's not wanted in New York. I don't know what it is. I would love to see someone with real talent catching the ball from Justin Herbert, because I thought the last couple of weeks, now that he's a little healthier, he has looked incredible.
Yeah, I like how fired up Tyler was getting there. He's getting a little color. Turned a little red.
I know, I'm pissed.
He almost camouflaged like into the background there from my angle.
It's pretty interesting because all the guys, the skill players that the Chargers got rid of this past offseason, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, none of those guys are having monster seasons, and yet I bet Justin Herbert would kill to have any of those guys back in his offense, because it is extremely troubling that the number 2 receiver on this team right now, in terms of both receptions and receiving yards, is Will Dissly, who for the entirety of his career has been a blocking first tight end. Like, what are they even doing here? It's pretty remarkable that they're 3-3 at this point. Again, a testament to their defense, but man, Justin Herbert has got to be feeling frustrated right now. Now, remember how I mentioned the Chargers offense has scored the second fewest touchdowns in the NFL? Well, the only team with fewer offensive touchdowns in the NFL is, fingers crossed, getting their starting quarterback back this week. Tua Tagovailoa is trending towards suiting up for the Miami Dolphins on Sunday after missing 4 games with a concussion. That's huge news for Miami, whose offense averaged 10 points per game in his absence and went 1-3, which puts them at 2-4 for the season. Boone, can the Dolphins get back into the postseason race now that Tua is likely returning?
Can they get back in the race? Yes. Can they stay in the race and actually make the playoffs? I don't think so. And I'm going to put my schedule hat on again. I know Wilkins always jokes when I do this every week, but if you look at their upcoming schedule, the next 5 weeks, 4 of those games are against average to below average opponents, and then there's a game against the Bills in there. So they could potentially go 4-1 during that stretch. I don't think Tua solves all their problems, but we know the offense has struggled so badly over the last stretch since he's been out. He comes back, he makes them competitive again. So could they go 4-1 and all of a sudden they're 6-5 going into December? Absolutely. But then you look at their schedule down the stretch, and I talked about this before the season, that I thought the Dolphins could have a good run out, assuming Tua was healthy, have a good run out all year, but then once they got to December, it was going to be a problem. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think they'll win some games over the next month or so, and then they're going to get to December, and there's games against the 49ers and some other teams. And I think by then, Christian McCaffrey will be back. The 49ers will be a little tougher than they've been recently, and I think the Dolphins will fall apart. Now, I'm going to bring up my other favorite thing, which is fantasy, because that's what this is really huge news for. The fantasy angle, this offense just completely fell apart, and there's so many stars, right? Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, guys that are elite fantasy options, and yet they couldn't find a quarterback to get them the ball to keep that offense moving. Now with Tua back, they go right back to being top-end guys. So Tyreek, a top 10 fantasy receiver, Devon Achane, a fringe top 12 running back, and then Waddle right back into the wide receiver 2 range. So I'm very excited about that aspect. And I'm just happy for Tua. I mean, it's great to see him back out there on the practice field. Whether he plays this week or not, we think he's going to. But just to see him back on the field is huge.
Yeah, nobody was more stoked than Tyreek Hill. He was saying, strike up the band. We're back, baby. Start me in fantasy this week. So he's definitely bullish about Tua getting back on the field. But yeah, it's going to be tough sledding because they're 2-4, and this was the easy part of their schedule, right? Like the first month of the season, they really didn't see too many tough opponents. They do have that easier stretch coming up, but then it gets really hairy into December. So they're in a big hole. We'll see what they can do. On that note, let's bring in our virtual homie, the Score's lead NFL reporter, Josh Tolentino. JT, man, so much to talk about this week, but let's start with the Jets, because no matter how bad they are, we just can't seem to quit this team. The latest big development with this 2-5 squad, Hassan Ridge. He has ended his lengthy holdout, the 2-time Pro Bowler. He's expected to make his Jets debut this Sunday after missing the first 7 games of the season. Josh, how can Hassan Ridge help this Jets defense?
Jonah, this is a Jets defensive line that has been stretched thin, especially following Jermaine Johnson's season-ending injury. We've seen Will McDonald experience or enjoy a breakout season, but the Jets are really hoping that Reddick can provide them with that much more in his return to the field. I spoke to several league sources, both with the Jets and those close to Reddick, and Hassan's been working out in Camden, New Jersey, just down the highway from the Jets facility in Florham Park. He feels like his body is fresh, that he's been working out this entire time. But guys, there's a difference, and any player will tell you this. There's a difference from being in shape to being in football shape. So Hassan, he's hopeful to play, in the team's upcoming game against New England. I imagine that he'll step in on known passing downs, but there's certain to be an acclimation period. And really the best news for the Jets is that Hassan has to be super motivated to produce right now. He's in the last year of his deal. We all saw the fireworks that emerged after the trade from Philadelphia that he wanted an extension. The two sides were not willing to play ball with each other. Now, basically, Hassan needs to rack up as many sacks as he can. He needs to show that he can stop the run, set the edge so that he can cash in when his true free agency hits at the end of the season.
Now, since we're already talking about dysfunctional teams, the Cleveland Browns. So Deshaun Watson goes down on Sunday with a torn Achilles. That gives the team an organic opportunity to reset, to turn the page, to experiment and explore over the remainder of what is, I think it's safe to say, a lost season. Instead, the Browns are set to hand their QB1 job to veteran backup Jameis Winston instead of 24-year-old Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Josh, why would the Browns do this?
Some fans in Cleveland have been clamoring for this switch. We've heard the "we want Jameis" chants throughout their struggles this season. The Browns were adamant on sticking with Deshaun due to the nature of his contract. And now with Deshaun's injury, plus Dorian Thompson-Robinson was hurt in Sunday's game, their hand is basically forced to turn to Jameis. I spoke to someone close to Jameis in his circle every single day. And they basically described that Jameis has been supportive of Deshaun all season long, but all along, he's felt this is an opportunity that he's deserved. It's an opportunity that he feels like he's prepared for all season. And guys, it's just one of two major changes happening in Cleveland this week with Ken Dorsey taking over play calling duties from Kevin Stefanski. So now that we see Jameis under center, that's exactly what I structurally from an offensive play calling perspective, that's what we might see more of, more under center, more play action, as opposed to what we've seen with Deshaun Watson struggle in that spread heavy offense. And looking ahead, this Baltimore Ravens game right around the corner. The Ravens, it's a very tough matchup, obviously a contender in the AFC, but they've truly been bleeding in the pass game. Most passing yards allowed in the NFL, 14 passing touchdowns allowed. So there's definitely an opportunity here for Cleveland and Jameis. And another positive note to end on there is that it seems like their offensive line has improved in recent weeks, and they're also getting healthier here as Jameis steps in under center.
Josh, another week, another Pro Bowl wide receiver gets traded. This time it was the undefeated but still extremely injury-ravaged Kansas City Chiefs, swinging a deal with Tennessee for DeAndre Hopkins. He's a three-time All-Pro, but he's also 32 years old. Josh, what can Hopkins do to spark this Kansas City offense?
There's plenty of familiarity between DeAndre Hopkins and the Chiefs. They nearly reached a deal 2 years ago. There were definitely serious conversations back then. But you ask about the spark that he can provide. You look at the Kansas City offense, obviously been lagging throughout this entire season. Patrick Mahomes, he's got the fewest amount of passes completed, more than 20 yards. And you look at the age with DeAndre Hopkins, obviously getting up there in age. You wonder if he could still can be that capable, dynamic receiver. Really, I'm excited for him to pair up with Andy Reid and the creativity there. I think that's a big X factor in this entire situation with Kansas City, is that D-Hop, he's someone who's thrived primarily on the outside. I'd expect him to move across the formation with Andy Reid, and again, that creativity, potentially playing the slot. That's a spot that he's appeared in with Tennessee. And finally, I was inside the Chiefs locker room this past Sunday in San Francisco, and I spoke to a whole bunch of players. And basically the vibe was that, they felt like they've had enough to get by to reach this perfect record that they're at 6-0. But they feel like the offense has certainly been longing for more. And you look at the past 2 years, guys, the Chiefs have struck gold with midseason acquisitions for wide receivers. 2 years ago, Kadarius Toney from the Giants. He makes that huge punt return in the Super Bowl, ended up making a big difference, making play there. And then last year, McCole Hardman from the Jets, a game-winning touchdown in overtime in the Super Bowl. This past Sunday, he just continues to be a difference maker. So 2 years in a row, they've acquired wide receiver. Now it makes 3 with D-Hop, and Kansas City is really hoping that he can make a similar impact as the Chiefs have their eyes set on late playoff football.
We'll see if they can, if Lightning will strike for a third time. I was going to say twice. Let's see if it can strike for a third time. JT, thanks for the insight as always, buddy. We'll let you go for now, but we'll see you next week.
Hey, guys, always great to gather up and chop it up.
Right on, dude. Let's stick with the Chiefs for a second because they're the only undefeated team remaining in the NFL, which is absolutely wild because Isaiah Pacheco's out. Rashee Rice is done for the year. So is Hollywood Brown. Juju Smith-Schuster is also hurt now. And yet, it seems like they're impervious to any kind of setback. Boone, do you think this Chiefs team can go undefeated?
I mean, the odds are big time against them, right? So, no, I don't think that they can. You normally see, they either run into another strong opponent, and I think that's going to be the Bills in Week 11 for the record. They're going to Buffalo to play them, and Buffalo's shown that they can actually beat them in the regular season. They just can't beat them in the playoffs. But they have some really easy matchups the next few weeks. They have some really easy matchups after that Buffalo game. So if somehow they can get by Buffalo, and D-Hop being there is going to be huge, then maybe we see them get to very late in the season before they suffer a loss. At the same time, though, and Wilkins can speak to this as a Raiders fan, we almost always see like one of these weird divisional games hand them a loss, right? You see a team like the Raiders or the Chargers or the Broncos just kind of show up.
Weird. I was expecting that Christmas Day result last year. I don't know about you, but
I mean, it does. The Raiders are the ones to do it every year. It seems like, but they do have them this week, and they're not. What are they? 10-point underdogs. This schedule.
I don't think the Chiefs are going to be losing this week.
There's maybe 2 losses on that schedule.
It's such an easy schedule.
That's the thing. God. I think 1 or 2 losses is definitely in play. I doubt we're going to see them go undefeated. But hats off to Mahomes and Andy Reid for getting them this far after losing all those guys. And really, I think people need to talk more about the Chiefs' defense. They are just incredible this year, and they've been the ones doing the heavy lifting. They've been the ones carrying them, and now hopefully the offense can get on board with D-Hop there.
Yeah, it's really crazy because they are not in the top 10 in the NFL in any offensive category. As a matter of fact, their turnover differential on the season is negative, and yet they've trailed by more than a touchdown once this season. It was against the Chargers, believe it or not, briefly in the first half in Week 4. Sorry, T, I think you were going to make a point there.
No, I was thinking the exact same thing in terms of they have not. The turnovers have been crazy.
Yeah.
That stat is ridiculous.
It's not relative to the rest of the league. Their point differential right now is the worst that it's ever been since Patrick Mahomes took over as quarterback in 2018, and yet they can't lose. They can't lose. It's unbelievable. Let's stick in the AFC for a second because the Colts have had themselves one of the weirder, wackier seasons in the NFL so far, but somehow they're 4-3, 1 game back of the division-leading Houston Texans. But here's the deal, of course. Through 7 games, Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco have taken almost the same amount of snaps. A-Rich is at about 55%, Flacco's at about 45%, and there's no question as to who's played better at the quarterback position. It's Joe Flacco, and by a lot. Anthony Richardson has looked terrible. He looked terrible again on Sunday, and Flacco, believe it or not, he's only played 3 games, but among quarterbacks with at least 100 plays, he's top 5 in the NFL in adjusted expected points added per play. Tyler, who do you think should be starting at quarterback for the Colts moving forward?
I think me and Wilkins are going to have a good argument here, so I'm looking forward to this. I said this a few weeks ago. This is all about what the Colts are serious about. If they're serious about contending, I mean, there's just no reason for Anthony Richardson to be playing because he's a detriment to them being able to win football games and get to the postseason in a year where the AFC seems pretty down, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure the Colts are still in the playoff spot at the moment. Richardson, lowest completion percentage in the NFL. The footwork has just, I think, been pretty brutal as well, and getting the ball out in those short areas of the field. Like the league average is 78% on passes of less than 10 air yards, and his is in the 50s. He's like 20% less than the league average. And the deep ball, which we all love to see from Richardson, he's throwing at the highest rate in the NFL. He has a completion percentage of about 35%. There isn't something in the pass game that you're pointing to say, here's something that we love to see, and he's doing it at a really high level or one of the highest levels in the league. So if you want to win football games in the AFC and potentially, we're not talking Super Bowl with this team, but I'm not going to use the sack percentage because Richardson's a super elusive quarterback, but the Colts offensive line has allowed the least amount of pressures in the entire league so far this season. I think we always talk about with Richardson, he's only played 9 games. He's only made 9 NFL starts. Trey Lance made 4 NFL starts, and Kyle Shanahan made the decision that this is not a viable starter for our team. And the Colts have a viable starter on their bench that can certainly help them win football games. Maybe they want to play Richardson, find out what he is, and then I think ultimately take a quarterback at the top of the draft, because Shane Steichen is a fantastic offensive mind that at this point, I think if they want to win games, it's certainly Joe Flacco over Anthony Richardson.
It is Shane Steichen, right? I've heard you say Steichen before. It is Steichen.
Steichen.
I thought it was Steichen.
A couple things. I do think we should give him a chance if Jonathan Taylor can get back this week and finally have everybody healthy. Let's see what he can do. And I say everybody healthy, but Michael Pittman's playing through injury. Josh Downs playing through injury. So that is part of it. I also think back to Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua Tagovailoa with the Dolphins, right? And they made that swap, and it was kind of the other way where Fitzpatrick was playing well, and then they switched to Tua. And at the time, people were furious about that. But it was for the same kind of reason here. You need the young guy out there to get those reps and to learn and get better. We talked about this earlier in the season about how Richardson needs those reps. So I still think they got to stick with Richardson. I think he gives them the highest potential ceiling and could, if things start to click, make them a potential contender. But we seem pretty far away from that right now. So I get the urge to go to Flacco. But I think you got to stick with Richardson and give him a chance when everybody's healthy to see what he can do.
I don't disagree that Flacco is the better option right now, but
Same.
like, what would the Bills look like if they benched Josh Allen during his first 2 years?
But the difference between like using Josh Allen or using a Lamar Jackson as like the poster child for this argument, those are the guys that are the exception to the rule.
That's what you're chasing here.
I know, but I don't think you see the same type of, like, there are physical traits with Richardson that are crazy. And he's a talented runner that they started to use a little bit more in the run game this week, I thought, which is a good thing, I think, overall for their offense. But I think they're scared to do it. And they're scared to utilize him in important areas of the field because he has the highest turnover-worthy play rate in the league. Thinking that Richardson will be that guy that Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson are, I understand the thought, but I just don't think it's there.
I think we're
don't
talking
it can
about
come
polar
together.
opposites too. Like you're using the Josh Allen example, you're using the Trey Lance example.
yes.
Those are kind of like the extremes at both ends.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, but this is why you draft guys with these traits, right? Like you're aiming for that Josh Allen upside. And again, the whole point with Josh Allen is I'll bring it up every time we talk about Anthony Richardson, and I don't care that it gets repetitive. Josh Allen was this bad for his first 2 years. He was awful.
What did he have? Did he have the weapons and the offensive line, the protection to be able to aid him in his play? That I think Richardson has.
Definitely not at that level, but you still saw the misses. You saw the absolutely ridiculous decision making that from Josh Allen straight through his first 2 years, and then he took another step. So for me, this has always been about reps for him. I know the Colts are probably better with Joe Flacco right now. I get that, but what are you actually going to accomplish getting to the postseason with Joe Flacco? If you just want that one postseason game that you lose to the Chiefs, like, go for it, I guess. But for me, this is the long-term play, and you have to play Richardson.
The one thing I find disappointing about Richardson, and maybe the injury factors into this, but he's not the rushing quarterback that I thought he was going to be this year. And when you go back to Josh Allen was incredible as a runner, 70, 80, 100 yards on the ground in some of those games in his rookie season and second year. We're not really seeing that from Richardson consistently or even almost at all this season. So that's a bit of a worry for me, and maybe it's because I have fantasy in the back of my mind, but I think that's where they need to build from. That's what happened with Lamar too, right? You had the rushing, and it allowed you to kind of force the defense to attack that, and then you were able to develop the passing game. I hope that they can do that with Richardson as well.
I thought he ran it pretty well. They still won that game this weekend because I thought he ran the ball.
I know, the Tua-less Dolphins.
Yeah. Again, the efficient, like just staying on the field on third down is just impossible with Richardson right now. Yeah. I understand. There's two perspectives. I don't think we disagree in that. I just don't think Richardson's eventually going to develop into the guy that they want him to be. That's more my stance.
This is the kind of spirited debate that has been sorely lacking from this show.
It has,
You guys have been like deferential and like gracious, and it's like, no, I need more like explicit. You're wrongs, I'm rights. That's what the people want.
I'm gonna flip this table at some point. We just need the right topic.
Yeah, it's actually hollow, so you're fine. Guys, before we move on, we got to talk about Jared Goff because he is playing out of his mind right now. Since week 3, the Lions QB has a 9-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. He's averaging more than 270 yards per game, and he's completed more than 83% of his pass attempts. Over his last 4 games, his QB rating is 144.8. Get this. In the last 50 years, only 2 other quarterbacks have posted a passer rating that high over a 4-game span. Russell Wilson in 2015 when he was at the height of his powers, and Kurt Warner in 1999 when he won the MVP and led the Rams to a Super Bowl title. Wilkie, what has gotten into Jared Goff?
Okay, so if you go back to what he was with the Rams and the early stages of his time with the Lions, he was always a very talented, natural passer. He could really spin it from a clean pocket, but if you got him under pressure, he would kind of crumble. And for me, as long as I've been watching football, those type of players don't really adjust their game at the next level. It's kind of one of those traits where you either have it or you don't. Mm-hmm. And I think he's kind of proving to be a bit of an exception. So last week against the Vikings, he was under pressure on 51.7% of his dropbacks. In those opportunities, he was 10 of 11 for 164 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the season, he is now throwing for 11.6 yards per attempt against pressure. That is a full 3 yards clear of Jaden Daniels in second place. If you want to take it a step further, I believe the NFL record for for overall passer rating was Aaron Rodgers in 2011 at 122.5. Jared Goff's passer rating under pressure this year is over 125. He just looks like a completely different guy. And if this is the guy that he's become, just kind of rounding out what was formerly a one-dimensional skill set as a passer, I really think this Lions offense is going to be unstoppable.
Ben Johnson's going to have an NFL head coaching job.
Of course.
Year.
I mean, if he takes it, he turned one down.
I know,
last year.
I don't think he's going to wait another year. I'm so interested to see what Goff looks like without him, because last week was the rare time this entire season so far that Brian Flores' defense looked to be on their heels. Mm-hmm. That I think it was 3rd and 6 in the red zone, where they handed the ball off and the Vikings showed like 6-7 guys in the line of scrimmage, drop back, and Gibbs ran the ball in for one of the easiest touchdowns of the year. Ben Johnson is such a good play caller, and Goff was, again, lights out, incredible. And this is the best offense in the NFL. Like, the Ravens have been incredibly good, but the group of skill position players they have for him too, this offense is unstoppable. It was so fun to watch on Sunday.
Yeah,
I can't get that excited about Goff, guys. Come on, it's the environment, it's the coaching, it's the players around him. He's not the kind of quarterback that you're going to pick up and drop in a scenario and go to the Chiefs and he's going to keep that offense moving with limited weapons and guys getting hurt. He's insulated by 2 really good running backs, an outstanding receiver. I know Sam Laporta hasn't done much, but Sam Laporta is still a good tight end. Jameson Williams having a bit of a breakout year. We'll see what happens. He's going to be suspended, it looks like, for a couple games, but they have so many good players around him. They have really, really good coaching. Yeah. I think Goff has improved. I think he's very comfortable in that setting. But I don't want to give him too many flowers here because I don't think he's that guy. I think he's just succeeding thanks to everything that's around him. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, an elite offensive line is obviously a factor, and so is the system because it gives you so many built-in answers against blitz looks. But again, the numbers that I laid out, those were his numbers against pressure, the numbers that he would falter in front of before, and now he's kind of stepping up under duress and delivering in a way that he never has before. So to me, he's just kind of taken it to the next level and built in a way to succeed that the Lions offense didn't have before. Now that they do, I don't see any weakness for them.
Yeah, it really paints a picture of a guy who has meaningfully evolved. Is Jared Goff a top 5 quarterback in your mind?
Oh my God, no! Come on, no! I don't think he's a
top
top 10 or 12 quarterback in the league.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, even go back to the success that he had with the Rams. How much of that was because Sean McVay was in his ear telling him exactly what to do? They'd get to the line early, and McVay would give him the read. Basically, that was a huge part of it. On top of the fact that they had great weapons around him there. So I'm not trying to put Goff down. It's amazing what he's doing, and this is a super fun team to watch. And I'm rooting for them. I like the Lions. I'm just saying, like, if Goff is the kind of quarterback that I feel like we're almost suggesting, he would be the guy that you could put on another team, and he would elevate everyone. I don't think he's that player. I think he's being elevated.
Fair enough. Fellas, this is episode 12 of No Timeouts. We've been at this for a little while now. I feel like we've built up enough credibility and enough goodwill with our analysis and our takes that we've earned the right to say some stuff that we know is going to upset people, drive them crazy, turn them into the Joker. So, no, it's going to be you, man. Without further ado, it's time to hear some unpopular opinions. Wilkie, you're up first.
We've talked about it a lot. Passing is way down in the NFL right now. Teams are putting up 209.5 passing yards per game. That's the lowest league-wide average since 2006. Going back even further, passing numbers were actually higher than that in 1989. That was before I was born. Boone, you might remember that season. I know that fantasy fans in particular, even fans in general, they like big passing plays. They like scoring. I don't care. This to me is just as fun. Teams playing good defense, running the ball well. I like it. I'd take this brand of football over quarterbacks dicing up cover 3 and people trying to tell me that running backs don't matter. So I love the way that football is right now.
I don't even have a response. I don't like your opinion at all. I don't have much of a argument to make with you about it.
Yeah, your taste is wrong.
Yeah.
Like that's it's as simple as
Back
that.
in my day, it was all about defense and running the ball.
Just,
I
they
agree with you,
invented the
Wilkie.
forward
I
pass
actually
back
do like
then.
this opinion. I like it.
Yeah, I got no beef with.
I think the league kind of ebbs and flows, and it's cool that this is happening.
It's so
right
cool
now.
that the defense has the upper hand now after so many years of just the offense having everything. We're gearing rules towards more scoring. So this is a nice change, and it's cool to see some of the concepts we see in the league now.
There's no more difficult job than playing cornerback, I think, in any sport, period.
Yeah.
Mine is, and this is just not going to make a lot of sense for some people, if my favorite team doesn't win the Super Bowl, I'd rather just watch Patrick Mahomes continue to be the greatest quarterback of all time. I don't know what it is. I don't know why he's not hateable to me. And I'm selfish. Like, if I'm not happy and my team doesn't win it, I don't want the Bills to win. I definitely don't want the Raiders to win, but somehow I'm saying this about the Chiefs. There's something that I can appreciate so much about Mahomes in particular and this Chiefs team to just continue to, when January shows up, they're going to consistently win football games that sometimes they're giving up a few wins in the regular season. But when it comes to be the most important time of the year, they just continue to win. And it's so thoroughly impressive to me from a home standpoint of the group of weapons that they brought in, the fact this defense continues to evolve. Sometimes they can't afford to keep some of these top guys. And they continue to find guys that will fit into the system, and somehow they're looking for their 3rd straight Super Bowl. So if the Chargers don't win it, I'm okay with seeing the Chiefs win their 3rd straight.
So hold on, let me get this straight. Last week we were doing trivia and you didn't answer Phillip Rivers. That was bad enough as a Chargers fan.
Yeah,
And
no,
now
I know.
you're just cheering for the Chiefs. Is that what I'm getting?
I wouldn't say cheering.
Yeah,
I guess.
If the Chargers can't get there, you're saying the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
I hate to break it to you, man. I don't think this is the Chargers' year.
No, neither do I.
Were
you listening to me?
Yeah,
earlier in
with
the show?
Will
Okay.
Disley as their second
Here's the
leading
thing.
receiver.
If you remove the Chiefs from this argument, because I can never cheer for the Chiefs, just
Right.
obviously. If you remove the Chiefs from this argument, I actually agree, because back in the day with the Patriots,
Yeah.
when they were always winning, I just wanted to see history. So when the Patriots got to the Super Bowl as the undefeated team, I wanted them to win. I didn't want the Giants to win for this one-off Giants Super Bowl win. I wanted to be able to see that perfect season. So I get that. I like seeing greatness. I'm the same way in baseball. Like, we have the Yankees, not to bring baseball in for you, but we have the Yankees and Dodgers in the World Series right now. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see the Guardians or the Royals. Come on.
Nobody does, unless you live in Cleveland or Kansas City. I'm not ashamed to admit it either, man. Like, when I didn't have a rooting interest in the Super Bowl, I was 100% cheering for Tom Brady to make more history. Like,
Yeah.
I think that we, as fans, relish seeing what we haven't seen before, and that is Tom Brady. That is the Chiefs three-peating, potentially. So I think that's
I
a
think
good
Boone should
unpopular
maybe
opinion.
give us a hardcore disagree, because I think the fact that the three of us are agreed on that, I
All
don't
right, Boone,
think
take the other
I don't
side.
think people would agree.
I will say, I came up with this idea for this segment. Wilkins and I were having a conversation a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I mentioned, I think George Pickens, how much I like him and how weird he is, and I feel like a lot of people don't like him. And I was like, hey, unpopular opinions. I think Tyler nailed it. I think this was the best unpopular opinion. When I read it, when he put it in our notes, I was like, that's exactly what this segment is, because I totally feel like I disagree.
Yeah.
I hate seeing the Chiefs win. I hated seeing the Patriots win. And I'll jump on board another team if the Bills are out. Let's say the Lions. They're a fun team, right? Like, sure, let's go for the Lions if the Bills aren't in the playoffs. But not the Chiefs, not the Patriots, not these dynasties. Absolutely not. I don't agree with that at all. But, man, that is a perfect one for this segment.
But in cheering for the Lions, you're still effectively cheering for history because they've never won a Super Bowl before.
I can also fall back on proximity, too. I'm closest kind of to, like, the Lions and the Bills.
Yeah.
So they can be
you hate the Patriots. Shocker. Boone, what's your unpopular opinion?
I had a really hard time, despite the fact that I came up with this segment. I really struggled to figure out what I wanted to talk about here. But after the game last week between the Eagles and the Giants, I think my unpopular opinion is that the Giants were right not to keep Saquon Barkley. And I don't think a lot of people would agree with that, especially Giants fans, because Barkley comes out, 3 touchdowns in the opener. Everybody goes crazy, right? Having a good season. The Giants struggling as usual. They had a couple things to be excited about, like Malik Neighbors, but not that much going on for them. And then Barkley plays them last week, and 187 scrimmage yards and a touchdown. Probably could have been 250 yards and 3 touchdowns if he wanted to. He was okay. He stayed out of the game. Sirianni was like, let's go for it. No. Barkley was nice about it. But I don't think that the Giants would be that much different if they had Barkley. They would be a similar team, just with a very expensive running back on their roster. Barkley doesn't solve the offensive line issues. He doesn't make the defense better. And maybe, just maybe, he would save Daniel Jones a bit. He'd make Daniel Jones look decent enough that they might stick with Daniel Jones longer, which I definitely don't think they should do. So I think it was a smart move that they just let him go, and now they can try to take shots on other running backs. Tyron Tracy Jr., he's looked pretty good in a couple games when he had easier matchups. Maybe he could be a long-term starter for them. And let's just figure this out in other ways than spending up on a running back when most of these big running back contracts, after a year or two, they look terrible anyway.
Like milk.
Yeah.
I already have someone trying to tell me that running backs don't matter again. This is ridiculous.
I was just going to say, I'm usually of that opinion, but Saquon's kind of it seems to be the exception to the rule. He's looked great in Philly. But I definitely don't disagree with this at all. The Giants did really well by Saquon in that they were like, go test the market, get the number, and we'll let you know what we want to do. Like he could have been in a worse place with Giants fans had he been like, nah, I don't want to be here. Because I kind of feel like he probably didn't want to stay in New York all along. Yeah. But the Giants made it really easy on him for him to leave, and it's worked out quite well for him. And I actually don't disagree. The Giants don't need Saquon Barkley. It's not going to move the needle.
It's a big difference running behind the Eagles' offensive line or the Giants' offensive line. So I don't think he'd be having a lot of 3 touchdown games, a lot of 187-yard games if he was in New York.
I mean, I disagree. I think I'm always team just get good players and don't let good players go for nothing, and that's what they did here. I just think the offseason edition of Hard Knocks was so funny because we got to see the behind the scenes of John Mara saying, I'm going to lose a lot of sleep if Saquon signs with the Eagles, and he does just that and absolutely tears them apart. And the Giants deserve it, man. They botched that whole situation. They signed Daniel Jones to the long-term deal. We all know that was a mistake. Then Saquon had to settle for the franchise tag as a result. I think it's pretty clear it should have been the opposite there. But again, I'm just the fan of running backs, so don't.
What was it? The
GM's
son, that little video of him saying, "You should draft Jaden Daniels. You should trade up and draft Jaden."
Yeah,
Daniels.
You only get this job once or whatever he said. It's like.
But it also feels like once you commit to Daniel Jones, everything you do subsequently is kind of rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Whether they brought Saquon, whether they brought back Barry Sanders, like this Giants offense, this Giants team is probably in trouble and going to be fighting it so long as they have Daniel Jones under center. All right, last thing before our last thing. Fellas, it's crazy to say, but we're almost at the halfway point of the 2024 season. Feels like an appropriate time to check in really quickly on the MVP race. Want to hear each of your favorites at this current juncture. Wilkie, who you got?
It has to be Lamar Jackson. He's won the MVP twice already, and this is objectively the best football of his career. He's completing more passes than ever. He's throwing for 9.1 yards per attempt. He's also 11th in the league in rushing. So I think we're well on track for 27-year-old Lamar Jackson to have as many MVPs as Tom Brady.
That's wild. See?
I think that if Lamar continues to play the way he has, I don't think there's much of a choice from voters, but we do have to keep in mind that this is something that's voted on, much like the Heisman Trophy that I pay a lot of attention to. It is voted on, and there are whether you like it or not, there are biases. There is voter fatigue, and giving someone an MVP in back-to-back years is something that you have to be exceptionally better than the next guy to be able to win it. So that is something that I would keep in mind. I like Josh Allen. This is a guy that hasn't won it. You look at some of the schedule is really nice. Seahawks, Colts are on there. The Niners' pass defense hasn't been great. The Rams are on there. 2 games with the Patriots. There's a lot of opportunities to be successful offensively. And so far this season, everybody talking about the fact that Josh Allen has taken care of the football, something he hasn't done in his career. That's a good feather in the cap. My one concern is he's not running the ball too much. He's got less than 300 rushing yards on the season. I think that would help his case to compete with Lamar if he was running the ball a little bit more. I'm really excited to see Amari Cooper get in this offense, hopefully help that downfield passing game. I thought Boone made a great point last week when you mentioned the fact that we're slotting some of these guys in this offense down into roles that they're probably more comfortable in, which can help this offense overall. Because Josh hasn't been great in the downfield passing game. I hope Cooper does that for him because it will, I think, submit his candidacy a little bit more. So I do like Josh to be able to get this one by the time the year is up. And I know he's one of the 3 favorites on the list.
Booney?
I think it has to be Lamar Jackson. I would have loved to have argued for Josh Allen here, but I'll go in a different route.
You don't want Jared Goff?
No,
maybe?
I'll go with somebody
He played
else
well.
just to throw a third name in there. And I think betting wise, I think he's still right up there at the top of the MVP, near it, maybe second or third. Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, this is a narrative award. This is not necessarily just a stats-based award. That's what Offensive Player of the Year is for, right? So can we tell a story for Patrick Mahomes to do this? I think we can. He doesn't have great numbers this season, but the biggest numbers there. They're undefeated right now. If they go this year and they finish, undefeated then for sure, but if they have 2 losses or even 1 loss, it reminds me, what he's doing right now reminds me a little bit of Tom Brady, to bring Brady back into it. And not like the 2007 year with Brady, not the Randy Moss, we're throwing it all over the field, but more like 2010 when Brady won it. And it was like Wes Welker, they had the tight ends. They didn't have great position players. They weren't putting up like just, monster stats, but they were getting the job done, and they finished with the best record in the league, 14-2. And Brady won MVP. So I think that's the path for Patrick Mahomes to do it, just based on the schedule, on the team winning, the consistency of the Chiefs, and the fact that they get D-Hop now. Maybe that does allow him to put up some bigger numbers as the year goes along. And I think later in the season probably factors in more on this award, I would guess, when it comes to the voting. So that's the argument for Mahomes, but I definitely think it's Lamar Jackson.
Do we have time for one more unpopular opinion?
Let's go.
Okay. After listening to these 2 candidates, I think we all need to understand that the MVP award is stupid. Every year we do this and we talk about, okay, how are voters going to feel about this particular one? They voted for this guy before. Maybe they have some
It's a fact,
fatigue.
though. It's a fact.
I know. Absolutely. You're 100% right. But then we also have, we're looking at this guy's team and, well, he has this supporting cast, so this guy is more valuable. Why are we doing this? This is the one thing that the CFL actually does better. It's most outstanding player. Just pick the best player.
Yeah.
Enough of this value thing. Lamar's the best player in the league right now. Give it to him.
CFL guy. He's a CFL
Big
guy.
Absolutely not.
But you want to talk narrative? Jaden Daniels has transformed an offense that was one of the worst in the NFL last season, and a team more broadly that is a perennial laughingstock, into the most prolific offense in the entire NFL. Maybe there's some concern amongst this panel about his injury right now, but he is 3rd in the NFL in total QB rating, behind only Lamar and Josh Allen. But he's 1st in adjusted EPA per play. He's 1st in completion percentage over expected, and the Commanders are a really good football team explicitly because of him. I'm surprised there wasn't a little more support coming from this panel.
I like it. I wonder if voters look at it and go, wow, we'll give him the Offensive Rookie of the Year, and that's his award this year, and he'll be in the MVP conversation in years in the future.
All right, fair enough. Now, you mentioned you're a big Heisman Trophy guy. That bodes extremely well for you. For today's trivia question, it's that time, fellas. You know the rules. You get one wrong, you're out. Here's today's question. There are 11 former Heisman Trophy winners active in the NFL this season. Name them. T, you're up first.
Oh, no.
Do I just go easy or do I go difficult? I think I'll go easy. Joe Burrow.
Correct.
Oh, man. Am I next?
Yep.
Oh, no. Baker Mayfield.
Correct.
Nice.
Kyler Murray.
Correct.
Devontae Smith.
Correct.
I might be out at this point. It's got to be a high quarterback. Come on. I'm taking the L. I'm out.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Boone's out. 2-horse race. Wilkie, you're up.
Why do I feel like that might be wrong? Derrick Henry?
Correct.
I can't believe we missed it because it was the most recent guy we talked about who just won it, Jaden Daniels.
Correct.
Yeah.
I was thinking Boone had a chance of just nabbing that, just thinking of recent.
Yeah, I was
players.
surprised.
I pay zero attention to college awards, so yeah.
That's fair.
Bryce Young.
Correct.
Damn, that was my one I just had in my pocket. Okay. Devontae Smith. This is gonna be a bad silence. See, I usually get these silences when we edit our trivia videos up, but this is live.
We're going to play this whole pregnant pause out in the 90-second reel.
My God. Recent Heisman winners. Tyler, this is your
There's
thing.
no shame. You're not the first one out this week, so the pressure's all
yeah,
off.
but
It's true.
I need to. It's still active. Did he say Kyler Murray?
Kyler Murray's been said,
Yeah.
It's been
No,
84
not-
years.
My God.
The studio is booked at 1 o'clock.
I know. I don't. I might have to bow out. Well, at least give Wilkie a chance to guess. Yeah.
You're not going to throw a name out there?
Well, I don't. I know. I don't have one that I thought of names like Justin Fields, C.J. Stroud. I know those guys aren't on the list. Justin Fields.
Hate to see it. All right, Wilkie, you get one and you're the champ.
I might be out of guys.
I know.
Um,
Oh my God. Oh my
Just
God.
got it.
Lamar Jackson.
Correct.
Oh, we didn't say Lamar? Oh my God. I was just thinking about Jameis.
What a mess. What an absolute mess.
How did we not say Lamar? I thought somebody
Do we
said
have that
Lamar.
championship belt yet?
Oh my God.
Lamar Jackson is indeed correct. Wilkie is the champion. Tyler is bathed in shame. Here are the ones that you guys missed. Caleb Williams. Don't know how we didn't
Oh,
get
yeah,
Caleb
missed
Williams, 2022.
Yep.
You mentioned him after the fact. Jameis Winston, 2013 Heisman winner. And then he had a big game last week. Marcus Mariota.
Right.
That's what I had when I said Jameis Winston. I was thinking of both of them. too.
Marcus Mariota. So another big dubs for big dubs over here. And that'll about do it for today's episode of No Timeouts. Once again, thanks so much for tuning in. That is Justin Boone. That is Tyler MacKillop. That's Sam Wilkins. My name is Jonah Birnbaum. We'll see you next time.